Welcome to Franchising Stronger Together. I'm your host, Red Boswell, president of IFPG, the International Franchise Professionals Group. We're joined today by a leader in franchising, and we're talking about how they have responded to this crazy virus that we're all experiencing together. We're joined by Lorne Fisher. Lorne is the founder, CEO of Fish Consulting. Lorne, welcome to the call today.
Thanks so much, Red. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Now, you guys do so much more than consulting. Is Fish Consulting the appropriate title? Because I oftentimes refer to you as Fish PR.
Yeah, so Fish Consulting is kind of the formal name. We go by Fish predominantly as we market ourselves. Really, it's a nickname as I grew up, so kind of felt that would be a more fun name than Fish PR, Fish and Associates, things like that. But we focus predominantly on communications, consulting, public relations, crisis, some marketing services. So mostly in the marketing realm for franchise businesses.
Perfect. You're all franchise all the time, really, right?
All franchise all the time, yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And you are in Broward County, Florida. It's a very densely populated metropolitan area. How are you and the family holding up?
We're doing all right. We've got two teenage girls, 18 and 16. So, their definitions of social distancing are quite different than most. So there's a bit of, trying to wrangle that and keep that in. But, I do get, I'm an adult dad, from the 18-year-old. So we try to manage that. But doing all right. Thankfully, everybody's safe and healthy, and our team is also safe and healthy. So we're thankful for that.
Yes, you have a big team there. I've been to your offices, great team. And yes, I've got a team similar to yours on the home front, a almost 18-year-old. Can't wait for the first time he tells me he's an adult and can make his own choices. We'll see how that goes. My 16-year-old and 13-year-old aren't quite there yet. Well, brother, we're here to talk about in a different angle than most of these interviews, because you're not a franchisor, but you've got a unique perspective on what's going on in franchising and a whole ton of franchisors that you guys work with and represent, and you've been helping them respond in no doubt a number of ways. And since a big part of what y'all do is helping with communications, and boy, we've all heard communication has never been more important than during this crisis. So help us understand. We already know kind of about Fish. Now help us understand, you're at a high level, what are you seeing out there from franchising? How are franchisors being impacted and responding? That's a big topic, brother, but anything you can share on that would be welcome.
You bet. Yeah, it has been quite a ride, certainly. So early March, it all kind of began, and it's gone through a variety of phases and waves, if you will. And, we've spoken on some webinars and such just to kind of share some of this. But at the beginning, it was really the first, this crisis has hit. And so how are we as a franchisor communicating with all of our various stakeholders? So from, okay, how are you operations being affected? What's happening with franchisees? How do we communicate with all of these audiences? So we were right in the trenches doing that initially. Then it kind of, people started to settle into, okay, this is going to last a little while. So now how do we shift our communications if we're shutting down operations, if we're making adjustments to our franchise agreements and what franchisees have to pay or not pay in this new normal? What are the challenges that they're facing? And how can we keep our brand and business still moving? And those businesses that are closed, they still need to be active to keep their brand top of mind so that when they do reopen, we've had several clients, whether they're fitness chains or personal service businesses, that have created other revenue streams for franchisees. Could be online workouts or providing tips and advice about how to do the things that they do in their locations at home. And then now where we're really moving towards is this reopening stage. And so granted, every state's going to do it differently. And really, we believe it's municipality by municipality. We're seeing that and how that is affecting our franchisor clients. So we've been active with them, providing guidance and advice on reopenings, what kind of communications they need to be thinking about to all their various audiences, the risks that are associated with going too early. In certain businesses, restaurants are radically different than, let's say, massage therapy franchise. So really making sure that we're giving that advice. And we've been also doing that on a periodic basis. Every week, we do send a communication to all of our clients with some thoughts and insights about things that they should be thinking about as they work through this pandemic. We're working on one now that's all about we're seeing now franchisees, employees, some of them are going on strike and refusing to come to work because of unsafe environments. And that's not necessarily, that's happening just in our clients, just industry-wide. So we're working through crisis kits, if you will, that franchisor can have available to them. And this is really just as a partner. So we're not really looking at this pandemic as a means to drive sales and revenue. It's really helping our partners get through this. Some of them have put us on hold, as many other suppliers have. Others have reduced fees. We do have several that have stayed where they were. So there's a mixed bag. But in the end, we're really helping all of them the same we did before, because when we come out of this, partnerships are really what's going to help businesses come back. So we have to be unselfish, but also contribute back to that relationship that they've invested in with us.
Wow. Well, thank you for including, I was going to ask that. Thank you for including your, Fish Consulting's actual impact, because you, like us, are a supplier to the industry.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so you're seeing a little bit of loss, you're seeing some new gain, you're seeing some keep it even, some influx, some reduction. We've seen a lot of the same too. We actually, the month of February, prior to really this catching fire, we have signed up in April the same amount of clients as new members as we signed up in February. That is so encouraging to
That's
us
great. Yeah.
to see the optimism in franchising. I'm experiencing every day with these interviews the optimism, despite the mass media that we're watching, thinking the world really is on fire, and in some cases it is. But there's a whole bunch of good news out there. Lorne, that the topic you are on, can we go deeper on that? Any as a on that PR side and that communication side, as a general guideline, do you have any specific suggestions, advice to franchisors? Do this, if and feel free to quantify it if you're in this industry or that. Anything beyond just, hey, communicate well, hey, do some extra Zoom calls, but really here's something you might not have thought about.
Sure, sure. One thing that's a theme overall we're talking about, Red, is really over communication is critical when you're looking at reopenings in particular. And while that may seem obvious and common sense to most, franchisors, as you well know, they get very focused on, okay, what do we do? How are we changing the table layout? What are we going to do with our inside of our operations? How is the cash wrap going to look? And how do we facilitate contactless delivery of our products? They get very focused, they decide on a plan, and then they roll it out. So what we're asking and what we're suggesting our clients do is bring franchisees into that discussion, work with them, whether it's through your advisory council or just talking to franchisees along the way, because not only is it going to make it smoother to roll it out, but they're the ones in the trenches. They're the ones and that theme really isn't any different than normal, but even more so now. If you're a restaurant, you're dealing with customers coming in. What kind of hiccups have you experienced in doing that? How does that need to be addressed? If you're a personal services business, how do you deal with social distancing and bring franchisees into that process and work with them? So that's something that we've been advocating for with our clients. In addition, one thing that will become apparent for a variety of brands is that some franchisees will open in certain municipalities, and right next door, a franchisee may not be able to open. So counties that are next to each other, cities that are next to each other. So more importantly, how is that franchisee that's opening sharing learnings with the franchisee that hasn't opened? That's one. So how are we ensuring that within the similar, it could be state or city, what kind of things did they learn so that that franchisee that has yet to open can benefit from those learnings? So that's critically important. Then in addition, how is that franchisee that isn't open helping market for the one that is open? So whether that's sharing messages online, whether that's reminding people who might contact them, no, we're not open, but our another location owned by a different franchisee is, and it's only 10 minutes away from us. So how can we help lift the brand when we know that people will be opening in different phases? So that's something that we've been starting to talk about as well.
That's strong. I have not heard that suggestion, but it really is common sense, and it's part of what franchising is all about. And it's, it goes kind of the title of what this whole series has become: franchising stronger together. Originally, it was just a hashtag for us, but it's a much more positive message that COVID-19 franchise leaders
Right.
respond.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
and
Right.
and we're seeing franchise leaders like you and so many great franchisors and leaders in the industry sharing, but now you're taking it down to the franchisee level, and those not open are sharing, helping, not just giving group advice and deciding best ways to tackle it, but actually saying, man, I can't open, but you know what, I'm going to communicate, and when I do, I'm telling everybody you are open.
Yeah,
Love that.
for sure.
What about, so on the communication side, we need to be communicating big time. Are you seeing, we're seeing a lot of Zoom, I asked this a bunch. Boy, Zoom has, I think I heard a couple days ago that they went from 10 million active users to 300 million or something like that
Great. Yeah.
in a couple weeks. So if you need any customer service, watch out. But great technology. Any other tools, technologies that you see being used or being really helpful for franchisors?
I think that it's not overly relying on one or two tools, but looking at the entire network of what you have, because I haven't seen necessarily a new piece of technology per se, but I have seen additional communications that are occurring with franchisors to franchisees and also their corporate employees, because part of it is that everyone is having to experience a new normal. No one's in the same office anymore. How do you keep your culture intact is really critical. And so what kind of FaceTime do you have as a leader with your team? I could just tell you for myself, we've got 23 people. There are more mid and junior level folks that I don't really see or interact with through the day to day, but I make a point every week to reach out to them, to call them, to Skype them, to touch base, to see how they're doing, because it's important that they hear from me, when typically you could take advantage of seeing people when you're walking around the office or interacting with them at the coffee maker or whatever that might be, but you don't have that anymore. So that touch is super important. So whether that's a franchisor or their corporate team, or franchisor to their franchisees, making sure that you're really engaging with them. Sometimes picking up the phone, which I know is super old school, is really a good way to do that. And people are used to that. So I think there can be, and we've seen fatigue with Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams or all these things that are out there. And I think sometimes our effort to have more, visual, communications has created that fatigue that, like, I don't want to get on Zoom anymore, but I'll talk to somebody, which is fine. So I think making sure that you're balancing and managing that, but really being visible, whether that's not on a screen, but at least yourself with your team is critically important.
We've experienced that too, and I'd love to understand more about how your team, those 23 folks at your office, especially the lower level ones, how has their lives changed? I'll give you an example on our end. This is way before the crisis hit. Amazon has the Echo, and one of the versions of the Echo is the Echo Spot. Well, I office, as most people know, in Dallas, but the rest of my team is in northern New Jersey, and so I need to deal with them and communicate all the time. We got this Echo Spot, and I thought, what is this thing going to be? A little screen on my desk, and I can say, I can say the name of it, and then call or contact Christine, and boom, within 4 seconds, Christine's right there. This has become a communication tool that, man, if Christine was on the other side of this wall right here, I think I would use this over getting up and walking around. It's just so easy. So that may be another tool that folks start taking bigger advantage of. How about your team? How has their world changed in how they do their job? Obviously, they're working from home. What else?
Yeah, I think that they're all talking with each other a lot more as well. I think that because we always have a structure of internal meetings, client meetings, recurring calls, but everyone's kind of touching base with each other a lot more. And part of it is we do, excuse me, we'll do every Friday. We have a cross team kind of Zoom call just so people could see each other. We've done virtual happy hours with them as well. We just put out a survey as we look at reopenings. Okay, what are you nervous about? What are you willing to do? What kind of concerns do you have when you come back in the office? Because we're building this plan of, okay, what does reopening look like and how can we manage a safe environment? Because if we have a team member, particularly a junior team member that may not understand how a business runs day to day, they're focused nose down on writing press releases, pitching media, working with their clients. They're not thinking of the larger agency operations, which makes sense. So making sure that we're involving them in that process, not unlike what we said about franchisors with franchisees, we want to do the same with our team so that they can be comfortable coming back to work. Because while they have been productive, and it may not be mandatory ultimately to come back in that right away, they need to feel that they're a part of that process. So that's been a big thing for them. I mean, some of them sit on the couch. Another one of our more entry level, who literally graduated college, moved to Florida, started working with us. She went back home and she's working from home now with her family in Boston, and that's working out fine. So part of it is making sure that we're not driving a specific process, but at least having that communication with them. And our culture has always been fairly flexible. We actually just added a blog to our newsletter we put out the other day about all the things we're doing to stay connected. We have some of our leaders that actually went and delivered gifts a couple weeks ago to people like at their apartments that we had gotten for them, and with signs that we miss you and all these other things. And so it was funny. Some of the folks, actually the junior people, thought that maybe they were going to get laid off because why are you coming to my house? It was kind of weird, but they were pleasantly surprised that we were just trying to stay connected. We've done like a fish bingo game about like just all the different weird things that are happening in this pandemic. So trying to keep our culture alive. We've been fortunate that we've been named best place to work by several different magazines and companies within franchising, PR, and national business. So really, we have to do our part to continue that, not unlike our relationships and partnerships we have with clients, to make sure that we're focused on keeping those intact and investing in them. We have to invest in our people the same way. So it's really helped everybody stay positive. I'm sure we all have days where we're ready to like get the hell out of the house we're in and got to get back to normal, but we have a responsibility to stay connected as a team.
But that is good advice for any franchisor and really any business owner. You at Fish Consulting are taking your own advice because you're telling franchisors, communicate, get out there, show you care, communicate a plan, take this survey, which I love that idea, survey your people about how they're doing in this and this and what do they expect and what are their fears. You're doing that internally so that you know how, and they see you care. That's the biggest part of it. They see that you care and you're following the pool of advice. It may be much more optimistic than you expect, and you won't know unless you ask. And by the way, you're absolutely right on your culture. Such a cool culture. Back at Franchise Expo South in, was it a year and a half ago? I guess it was January last year. We had a mixer at your place. I'm driving, I think I got an Uber, and he takes me to the address, and I'm like, no, that's not it. That's a warehouse. We got to look for, where's Fish Consulting? I don't see us. It was a cool warehouse. I mean, I don't know what, maybe there's a better name for than warehouse, but it was a refurbished 100-year-old looking building anyway, and a great, you just walk in and you go, I think I want to work here. You know, I mean, you got it.
Yeah, it's been great. We actually converted, it was about, I think we've been in it a little over 2 years. We bought it about three and a half years ago. It was an old art gallery that one side of it was the artist studio. She did sculptures and painting. And then the other side was a women's only nonprofit art gallery. And so the couple that owned it, the wife was the artist and the husband was the business person. And so they both had that building and they built it and they made it kind of a business for themselves, because we're right in Fat Village, which is Flagler Arts and Technology, is a kind of an artsy area in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So the art gallery is kind of part of that community. So when we bought it, we kind of converted it, kept a lot of the gallery aspects of it. And it's just a fun place to work. You know, I go back every now and again just to check on it during this crazy time. And it's like, it's kind of sad. It's sitting there empty. You know, we really want to get folks back in there, but we're going to have to pace ourselves with everything going on.
Pace yourself. Good word for sure. You know, you guys are so close, you could practically walk to our annual retreat. IFPG has our retreat in Hollywood, Florida at the Margaritaville Resort in early October. So might have to get you down there.
That'd be great.
Lorne, boy, I wish we had a couple hours to go through so much of the insights you're seeing, but I'll just throw it wide open. Any others, maybe stories of triumph, the interesting analogies that you've seen out there, happenings, or advice, or even predictions? What do you think?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind, Red, is really what the franchise community has done, not only to help each other, because there's tons of that. I think a lot of the suppliers like ourselves are doing webinars, not unlike this conversation, but we're seeing things from Faegre, and we're seeing things from FranConnect, and we're seeing so many different webinars. The IFA is doing a ton as well, just communicating and sharing information. And I think one of the things that I saw 15 or so years ago when I started in franchising was the willingness of competitors and the community to really help each other. And I think that we're seeing that in an exponential way. So that's been incredibly great to watch and participate in as much as possible. And then also we're seeing what these franchise brands are doing in their communities, what franchisees are doing to really help those in need. We're seeing tons of great things when it comes to medical professionals and first responders. We're seeing people contribute to food banks because those people are suffering. We saw, you know, recently the millions and millions of people that are unemployed and how they need resources. You know, we're working with some of the fintech companies and helping get PPP loans to small businesses to make sure that they can survive. So we're seeing a lot of unselfish behavior, which is really incredible. There's always going to be the over solicitous, opportunistic company, but those brands never last and those businesses never succeed. And so we're seeing people really, really give back, knowing that everyone is suffering. And so I think that has been great and refreshing to see that even in a pandemic, and all the negativity that's happening, people are still rising to the occasion and working to help each other. And that's been really refreshing. And that keeps me positive, keeps the team positive, and I think it's wonderful to see.
Couldn't agree more. Lorne Fisher, Fish Consulting and PR, thank you so much for joining us today on Franchising Stronger Together. Franchise Leaders Respond. Thank you, Lorne.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Red.
See you on the road, hopefully real soon.
Yes, me too.